Hello, folks. This week we're in chapter 8 of your textbook. We're talking about the endocrine system. And hopefully, by talking about the endocrine system, we can talk about other systems like the renal system because hormones tend to affect many organs within the body. Okay, so let's go straight into our introduction to the endocrine system. So, by definition, the endocrine system is a collection of glands whose function is to regulate multiple organs within the body, to meet the growth and reproductive needs of the organism, to respond to fluctuations within the internal environment, and including various types of stress. So, in summary, the endocrine system functions to maintain homeostasis, that's balance or dynamic maintenance of the internal environment. It functions to maintain salt and water balance when you get thirsty, when your body gets dehydrated, when you go use the restroom, when you pee. It's the endocrine system that regulates all of that. Calcium and phosphate balance. You need calcium for many things. Now, we've talked before about the things you need calcium for. Calcium can work as a second messenger. It's necessary for contraction of muscles and all those things. So we need that. And so the endocrine system is actively involved in regulating calcium balance. Then we have metabolism and fuel utilization, the regulation of proteins and glucose and glycogen and fatty acids are under the direction of the endocrine system. How about stress management, fight or flight response, and production of cortisol whenever we're stressed are under the endocrine system, and of course under the nervous system also. And then we have the reproduction, growth and development, and senescence, which is death. Senescence, which is death. And so all of these are under the functions of the endocrine system, the purview of the endocrine system. So, behavior is one of the things I love to talk about, and behavior is typically regulated by the nervous system and the endocrine system. For instance, I listed here behaviors such as migration and hibernation have a lot to do with the time of the year and the circadian rhythm and circannual rhythm, and these are highly influenced by the endocrine system. So another really important function of the endocrine system is, just our overall health. If you've ever been to the doctor and they sent you a medication, sometimes the doctor may require you to take the medicine at certain times of the day. And sometimes that's because medicines can act optimally when certain hormones are activated or deactivated. And so that's why the doctor will often tell you that, hey, take this medicine at this time of the day or this time of the night. And because these medicines interact with hormones. Now, hormones are these chemicals in the body that are produced within the endocrine system that are able to communicate from organ to organ. And these, we're going to talk very much about hormones, these chemicals, the rest of this lecture. So I have here endocrine disruptors. The endocrine system can be affected negatively by what we call endocrine disruptors. Because the endocrine system is made up of chemicals, we have external chemicals that can come in and interact with our bodies, mimicking the actions of the hormones that are produced by the endocrine system. And these are endocrine disruptors. So part of the reason we study the endocrine system is to be able to understand these endocrine disruptors, how they work, how to reduce their effects within the environment, how to control how much availability they are out there. We have bisphenol A. It's a very popular endocrine disruptor found in old plastic bottles. And we have different other different endocrine disruptors. Soy is known as a phytoestrogen that can be an endocrine disruptor. So we're going to talk a little bit about endocrine disruptors also, but I just wanted to show you that the endocrine system is quite important, much beyond just what's happening with the natural chemicals you're producing. It also affects the exogenous, the external chemicals that come into your body. So, how does a hormone work? How does a hormone work? So, the hormones are a list of chemicals, a series of chemicals that are produced by your body that are able to target specific organs and elicit a behavior or elicit a physiological action. That would be a hormone. Hormones regulate biological processes such as muscle growth and hunger and heart rate and menstrual cycle. In fact, most of reproduction is under the direction of the endocrine system. The cycle, a female cycle, reproductive cycle, which is lasts about 28 days, is a series of behaviors that are under the direction of the endocrine system, because the endocrine system produces estrogen and progesterone. These are hormones that are produced, and they regulate reproduction. It also regulates growth, hunger, heart rate, and the menstrual cycle. Let's look at a few words here. So we've defined hormones. How about the target cell? So a hormone will target specific parts of the body. So hormones are specific in their actions. They don't target all cells, they don't target all organs, but they have certain organs that have what we call receptors. Those receptors have an affinity, or they have an association they have with the hormone. Whenever you have a target cell that has these receptors that have an affinity for a certain hormone, that is called a receptor, and the cells that have this affinity are called target cells. So a target organ contains cells that express hormone-specific receptors that respond to hormone binding by a demonstrable biologic response. Okay, for instance, we have estrogen produced by the ovaries, right? And estrogen, when it's produced by the ovaries, it goes around the entire body, but it only binds to its target cells. And what are some of the target cells of estrogen? We have the mammary glands, we have the uterus. Those are target cells of estrogen. We have different types of hormones and different types of target cells. And now a non-target cell will not have receptors and thus will not respond to a hormone action. So let's talk real quick about the major endocrine glands of the body. Endocrine substances, which we know as hormones, are produced all over the body. In fact, it would surprise you that the skin produces its own hormones, right? There are hormones all over the body, but there are major endocrine glands, okay? And when we say endocrine, we're talking about ductless glands, ductless, as opposed to exocrine, which have ducts, okay? So these have ducts, and exocrine has ducts, and endocrine have no ducts. So we have the major endocrine glands of the body include the hypothalamus, which is part of the brain, which is the master, which is like a master neuroendocrine organ. So this is a neuroendocrine organ. And then the hypothalamus is in direct relationship with the pituitary gland. We're going to talk about the pituitary gland later. The hypothalamus produces what we call releasing hormones, which are then going to target the pituitary, which makes what we call stimulating hormones. We're going to talk about that shortly. And then we have the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland is unique because it actually is the only gland in the entire body that can be palpated, that can be felt. So sometimes you go to the doctor and the doctor is actually able to palpate your thyroid gland. On the thyroid gland, we have four glands called the parathyroid gland, and these are responsible for the production, for the regulation of calcium, and we're going to talk about that next week. We have the adrenal glands, which are located superior to the kidneys. They're sitting right on top of the kidneys, and the adrenal glands are very famous for making steroid hormones. And then we have the pancreas. The pancreas, which is an organ that I talk about a lot because my specialty is in talking about insulin, and the pancreas makes insulin, which regulates metabolism in many ways. We will talk about that. Then we have these two, the ovaries and the testes, which we will call the gonads, and these also make steroid hormones, and the testis is famous for making testosterone, while the ovaries are famous for making estrogen and progesterone. We will talk about that when we come to the reproductive system. Okay, so one of the homeworks I want to give you is, what are the hormones made by these endocrine organs? I'm going to give you this homework. I'm going to post it for you. What hormones are made by these endocrine organs? I want you to find